Have you ever walked into a room, said absolutely nothing, and somehow somebody already has a problem with you? You didn't steal their lunch. You didn't insult their dog. You didn't challenge them to a boxing match in the parking lot. You literally just showed up, and somehow the atmosphere changed. Suddenly someone is acting weird. Someone is giving you that look. You know the look that says, I don't know why, but your existence is making me uncomfortable. If you've ever experienced that, today's video is going to be very interesting, because according to Carl Jung, one of the most misunderstood qualities in life is quiet confidence. Not loud confidence, loud. Not the person who walks into a room announcing that they're an alpha. Not the person posting 57 motivational quotes every morning. Not the person who needs everybody to know how successful they are. No. Quiet confidence is different. Quiet confidence doesn't need a microphone. It doesn't need applause. It doesn't need permission. And strangely enough, that can make some people nervous. Because when someone depends on approval, validation, attention, or constant recognition, meeting a person who doesn't seem desperate for any of those things can feel unsettling. And here's the funny part. Most of the time, you're not even trying to intimidate anybody. You're just minding your business, drinking your coffee, paying your bills, trying to remember why you walked into the kitchen, and somehow somebody has started a competition with you that you didn't even know existed. If you've ever felt that, make sure you stay until the end, because some of these signs are incredibly subtle. And I promise, one of them is going to make you think, okay, now that explains a lot. So let's jump right in. Sign number 1. They keep trying to prove something to you. Have you ever met someone who turns every conversation into the Olympics? You say, I went for a walk today. And they immediately respond, oh really? I walked 10 miles uphill carrying groceries. You say, I finally finished reading a book. And they say, I read 3 books yesterday while starting a business and learning 5 languages. You're standing there wondering, should I clap? Because somehow every normal conversation has become a competition. Now here's what's interesting. People who feel comfortable with themselves usually don't need to constantly prove their worth. They don't feel the need to win every discussion. They don't need every story to end with them being the hero. But when someone feels threatened by your quiet confidence, they often start performing. They start showcasing. They start advertising themselves. It's almost like your calm energy is making them feel like they need to increase their volume. And honestly, it's kind of funny when you notice it, because you're not competing. Meanwhile, they're giving a TED talk nobody requested. You could literally say, the weather is nice today, and somehow they'll respond, actually I studied meteorology for 6 months. Sir, we're discussing clouds. Relax. Carl Jung believed that people often project their insecurities outward. Instead of dealing with their own self-doubt, they try to convince others and themselves that they're important. That's why your quiet confidence can accidentally become a mirror. And mirrors make some people uncomfortable, not because of what you say, but because of what they see. The truly confident person doesn't need to dominate every room. They don't need to be the smartest person in every conversation. They don't need constant proof that they matter, because deep down they already know their value, and that's powerful. In fact, one of the biggest signs of confidence is being able to sit quietly without feeling invisible. Think about that for a second. Some people panic when attention leaves them. Others are perfectly fine letting someone else shine. That's a completely different level of confidence. And when people notice that about you, one of 2 things happens. They either admire it, or they feel challenged by it. There's rarely an in-between. Now I want you to think about your own life. Have you ever met someone who seemed determined to impress you from the moment they met you? No matter what topic came up, they somehow had a bigger story, a better story. A more dramatic story, a story with special effects. If you know exactly what I'm talking about, drop a comment below and tell me, what is the funniest one-up story you've ever heard? Trust me, the comment section is about to become comedy gold. And believe me, sign number 2 gets even more interesting, because this next behavior is something people do without even realizing it. So let's keep going. Because sign number 2 is one of those things that feels confusing until you finally understand what's happening. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Sign number 2. They downplay everything you do. You ever tell someone good news and somehow leave the conversation feeling like you just apologized for it? You say, "I got a promotion," and they respond, "Oh, nice." That's it. Just, "Oh, nice." The same energy people use when you tell them your toaster works. No excitement, no happiness, no celebration. Just emotional tumbleweeds rolling across the room. Or maybe you tell them, "I've been working on myself lately," and they say, "Everybody's working on themselves." Okay then. Thank you, Captain Sunshine. Now here's the funny thing. People who are secure usually enjoy seeing other people succeed. They don't feel personally attacked by your growth. They don't need your light to become smaller so theirs can feel brighter. But when someone secretly feels threatened by your confidence, they may try to reduce the significance of your achievements. Not because your achievement isn't impressive, but because acknowledging it makes them uncomfortable. Think of it this way. Imagine someone is struggling with their own self-worth. Then they see you calmly improving your life without constantly seeking approval. That can trigger something, not because you've done anything wrong, but because your growth reminds them of what they're avoiding. And suddenly, your success becomes inconvenient. It's almost like you hand them a beautiful painting, and they immediately start inspecting the frame. "Yeah, but what about this little corner right here? Really, that's what we're focusing on? The tiny corner." Meanwhile, the entire masterpiece is hanging right in front of us. And here's something I've noticed. The more quietly successful someone becomes, the more this happens. Because loud success is expected. People expect the bragging, the announcements, the endless updates. But when somebody is quietly building a better life, that catches people off guard. You disappear for a while. You work on yourself. You heal. You grow. You learn. Then one day people look at you and think, "When did that happen?" And that's when the strange reactions start, because confidence that grows in silence often feels more powerful than confidence that constantly seeks attention. Now don't misunderstand this. Not everyone who fails to celebrate your success feels threatened. Some people are just distracted. Some people are having a rough day. Some people have the emotional range of a potato. We're not judging, we're observing. But if someone consistently minimizes everything positive happening in your life, that might tell you more about their inner world than yours. And speaking of strange reactions, this next sign is one of my favorites, because it's so common, and it's honestly a little hilarious. Sign number 3. They secretly turn you into their competition, even though you never signed up. You never agreed. Nobody asked you. Yet somehow you're participating in a contest you didn't know existed. Have you ever had someone randomly compare themselves to you? You're sitting there peacefully, living your life, trying to remember where you left your keys, and suddenly someone is measuring every aspect of their life against yours. Your job, your appearance, your relationships, your progress, your hobbies, your breakfast, everything. You buy a bicycle. Suddenly they're researching motorcycles. You start exercising. Suddenly they're training for the Olympics. You learn a new skill. Suddenly they're launching a masterclass. The competition never ends. And the funniest part, you aren't even competing. You're over here focusing on your own journey. Meanwhile, they're acting like the final score is being displayed on a giant stadium screen. Carl Jung talked about the shadow, the hidden parts of ourselves we don't always acknowledge. And sometimes people project their insecurities onto others. Instead of asking, "Why do I feel insecure?" they ask, "Why is that person making me feel insecure?" Notice the difference. One question leads to growth. The other creates rivalry. That's why confident people often attract unexpected competition, not because they're trying to dominate anyone, but because their presence unintentionally highlights other people's self-doubt. And here's where it gets really funny. The truly confident person doesn't spend much time looking sideways. They're too busy looking forward. Think about professional athletes. The best performers aren't constantly staring at their competitors. They're focused on their own lane, their own performance, their own improvement. The same applies in everyday life. Quiet confidence says, "I hope you win too." Insecurity says, "I can only win if you lose." Huge difference. And once you understand that difference, certain people suddenly make a lot more sense. You stop taking their behavior personally. You stop wondering why they're acting strange, because you realize something important. Their competition isn't actually with you. It's with the version of themselves they wish they were. And that's a battle only they can solve. Now here's a question for you. Have you ever realized someone was secretly competing with you long before you noticed? Maybe a coworker, a friend, a relative, or that one person who somehow turns every conversation into a scorecard. Let me know in the comments. I'm convinced we've all met at least one of these people. And trust me, the next sign is even more revealing, because it involves something people do when your confidence starts making them seriously uncomfortable. And once you spot it, you'll start noticing it everywhere. All right, let's keep this train moving, because sign number 4 is sneaky, very sneaky. Most people completely miss it. In fact, sometimes it looks like admiration at first, but underneath it, something very different might be happening. Sign number 4. They start copying you now before anybody gets excited. No, this doesn't mean you're secretly a celebrity. It doesn't mean people have built shrines in your honor. Let's stay humble. But have you ever noticed that after you've known someone for a while, they suddenly start adopting things that make you, well, you? You start using a certain phrase. A few months later, they're using it too. You develop a new habit. Suddenly they're doing the same thing. You change your style. A little while later, they're showing up looking suspiciously familiar. At first, this can simply be admiration. And honestly, that's normal. Human beings naturally learn from each other. We copy things we like. We all do it. Somebody shows us a great life hack. Next thing you know, we're pretending we discovered it ourselves. That's humanity. But sometimes there's another layer. Sometimes a person feels threatened by your confidence because they haven't developed their own identity yet. They see something solid in you, something calm, something authentic, and instead of building that within themselves, they try to borrow it from you. It's almost like they're thinking, maybe if I wear the same confidence, I'll feel the same confidence. Unfortunately, confidence doesn't work like a jacket. You can't borrow it. You have to build it. And here's where it gets funny. Have you ever introduced someone to your favorite thing? Your favorite song? Your favorite restaurant? Your favorite hobby? And then suddenly they become the world's leading expert on it? Now they're explaining it back to you. You're sitting there like, "My friend, I introduced you to this last Tuesday. How are you now teaching the class? It's amazing." And honestly, sometimes it's hilarious. The reason this happens is simple. Confidence is attractive, not just romantic attraction. Human attraction. People are naturally drawn toward individuals who seem comfortable in their own skin. That's rare, and rare things attract attention. The key is not getting angry when you notice it, because often it has less to do with you and more to do with what they're searching for in themselves. Now, speaking of searching, Sign number 5 is where things start getting really obvious, because this is one of the biggest clues that somebody feels uncomfortable around your quiet confidence. Sign number 5. They try to leave you out now. This one can sting a little, because nobody enjoys feeling excluded. But here's something interesting. Sometimes exclusion isn't about dislike. Sometimes it's about intimidation. Have you ever noticed how certain people become awkward around someone they perceive as confident? Instead of getting closer, they create distance. Instead of including them, they avoid them. Instead of engaging, they withdraw. And from the outside it looks confusing, because you're thinking, I've literally done nothing. Exactly. That's the point. You've done nothing. And yet they're uncomfortable. Carl Jung believed that people often struggle with aspects of themselves they haven't fully accepted. When someone appears grounded, secure, and self-assured, it can unintentionally trigger those unresolved feelings, so rather than confront those feelings, some people choose distance. Now let's make this practical. Imagine a group project. Everybody's talking. Everybody's sharing ideas. Then one person walks in who seems calm, capable, and confident. Suddenly a few people become weirdly quiet. Not because the confident person said anything. Not because they acted superior, but because their presence alone shifted the dynamic. We've all seen it. And here's the funny part. The quiet, confident person is usually completely unaware. They're over there wondering, should I order pizza later? Meanwhile, somebody else is conducting a full psychological investigation. It's like accidentally becoming the main character in a movie you didn't audition for. And if you've experienced this, I want you to hear something important. Don't automatically assume exclusion means you've done something wrong. Sometimes it does. We're all human. Nobody's perfect. But sometimes people create distance, because your confidence reminds them of what they're still struggling to develop. That's their journey, not yours. And the healthiest response isn't anger, it's understanding. Because when you understand what's happening, you stop chasing acceptance from people who are busy wrestling with their own insecurities. You stop shrinking yourself. You stop pretending to be less confident. You stop dimming your light to make other people comfortable. Because here's the truth. No matter how small you make yourself, someone will still find a reason to feel threatened. So you might as well be yourself. Now don't go anywhere, because sign number 6 might be the most common sign of all. In fact, once I explain it, you're probably going to think of 3 different people immediately. And trust me, it's both fascinating and a little funny. All right, we're down to the final 2 signs. And honestly, these might be the most revealing of all, because by now we've talked about people competing with you, copying you, downplaying you, and even excluding you. But these last 2 signs happen when somebody feels deeply unsettled by your quiet confidence. Let's jump in. Sign number 6. They become strangely defensive around you. You know what's funny? Sometimes you don't even have to say anything. You're just standing there, existing, breathing, trying to enjoy your day. And somehow somebody starts defending themselves against accusations that nobody made. You ask a simple question, and suddenly they're giving a 20-minute explanation. You make a casual observation, and suddenly they're acting like they're in a courtroom. You think, whoa, I only asked what time it was. How did we get here? Now, this doesn't mean every defensive person feels threatened by you. Some people are dealing with stress. Some people have had difficult experiences. But when someone consistently gets defensive around a calm, confident person, something interesting may be happening. Your confidence creates contrast, and contrast can make people aware of things they'd rather not think about. For example, a person who constantly seeks validation may become uncomfortable around someone who doesn't. A person who struggles with self-worth may feel uneasy around someone who seems comfortable in their own skin. Again, not because you've done anything wrong, but because your presence shines a light on something they're wrestling with internally. Think about a shaky table. You don't notice how unstable it is until you place something solid next to it. Then suddenly the difference becomes obvious. And that's why quiet confidence can feel powerful. It doesn't attack, it doesn't criticize, it doesn't boast, it simply exists. And for some people, that's enough. Now here's the good news. You don't need to fix everyone. You don't need to convince everyone to like you. You don't need to spend your life managing other people's insecurities. That's a full-time job nobody applied for. Your responsibility is to remain authentic, respectful, kind, and grounded. Everything else belongs to them. Now let's talk about the final sign, and this one ties everything together beautifully. Sign number 7. Your presence makes them uncomfortable. Not your words, not your actions, your presence. This is the sign that confuses people the most, because there isn't always a specific event you can point to. Nothing happened, no argument, no disagreement, no conflict. Yet the energy feels different. You walk into a room, someone suddenly becomes quiet. Someone avoids eye contact. Someone starts acting nervous. Someone changes completely. And you're left wondering, what just happened? The answer is often simpler than you think. Quiet confidence has a way of exposing masks. People spend years creating versions of themselves for the world. The funny version, the tough version, the perfect version, the always successful version, the version that has everything together. Then they encounter someone who seems comfortable being genuine, and suddenly, maintaining those masks becomes exhausting. Carl Jung spent much of his work exploring the difference between who we truly are and who we pretend to be. And one of the reasons confident people can feel intimidating is because they remind others that authenticity is possible, not perfection. Authenticity. That's a huge difference. The confident person isn't perfect. They still make mistakes. They still have bad days. They still forget passwords. They still put their phone somewhere and spend 20 minutes looking for it while it's literally in their hand. They're human, but they've stopped needing constant approval to feel valuable, and that's what makes them powerful, not because they're better than anyone else, but because they're free. Free from constantly performing, free from constantly proving, free from constantly chasing validation. And people notice that, whether they admit it or not. So if you've recognized some of these signs in your own life, here's something I want you to remember. Don't become arrogant. Don't start looking down on people. Don't assume everyone secretly fears you. That's not the lesson. The lesson is understanding. Understanding that other people's reactions often reveal more about their internal struggles than about your worth. And understanding that you don't need to shrink yourself to make everyone comfortable. Keep being kind. Keep being respectful. Keep growing. Keep learning. Keep becoming the best version of yourself. Because the right people won't be threatened by your confidence. They'll be inspired by it. They'll celebrate it. They'll appreciate it. And those are the people worth keeping close. Now, before we wrap up, I want to hear from you. Which sign stood out the most? Was it the competition, the copying, the defensiveness, or that strange feeling when someone seems uncomfortable around you for no obvious reason? Drop it in the comments below. I read your comments, and honestly, some of you should be professional storytellers because your experiences are incredible. And if you enjoyed spending this time together, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and join our growing community of people who love psychology, self-discovery, and becoming stronger from the inside out. And one more thing, if these videos bring you value, make you think, make you smile, or even keep you company during your day, and you'd like to support the channel a little extra, you can always buy me a coffee. Your support helps me create more videos like this and keeps the channel growing. The link is in the description. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your time. And remember, the strongest confidence is often the quietest. See you in the next video.